All right, so you ready for this?
Yeah, bring it on.
All right. We're diving deep today, really deep.
Deep dive.
A deep dive into how epidemics, these tiny little bugs,
Yeah.
they've actually changed history. Like empires, gone.
Mm-hmm.
Wars, over.
Mm-hmm.
All because of some, invisible invaders.
Crazy, right.
It is. And you know what? You sent me some seriously interesting stuff on this, so this is going to
Good
be
stuff.
good stuff. Not your typical history lesson, I'll tell you that.
No.
We're talking mind-blowing stuff here, the kind that makes you see the world, well, a little differently.
For sure.
So to help us navigate this microscopic battleground, we've got our expert here, ready to explain it all and tell us why we should even care.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to get into all this stuff with you. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's get started. One of the things you sent me was this excerpt. It's called, "What Has Humanity Learned from Epidemics?"
Oh, yeah, that one.
And it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's a big question.
Yeah.
I mean, we could spend a lifetime trying to figure that out. But maybe, a starting point is, how has disease, messed with the stories, the history we think we know?
That's a great question. And I think one really powerful example is the Spanish conquest of Latin America.
Yeah.
We always hear about, the conquistadors, all their strength, their weapons, their technology.
Right.
But what we don't hear about is this secret weapon, this invisible force, disease.
I have to admit, when I think conquistadors, I think armor, I think swords.
Yeah.
Not, germs.
Right. Exactly. But those germs, those are a big part of it.
So how did disease actually, help them conquer?
Well, when the Spanish got to the New World, they brought with them all kinds of diseases, right? Smallpox, for example.
Uh-huh.
And the native populations, they'd never seen these diseases before, so they had zero immunity.
Oh, wow.
It was like a biological wildfire just ripping through their communities.
And that's something the source mentions, this biological advantage. So what does that actually mean here?
Basically, the Spanish, they had this huge advantage just because their bodies were used to these diseases that were totally new and deadly to the indigenous people.
Oh, I see.
Smallpox, for example, it caused fever, these awful blisters, and often death.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. And it's estimated that in some areas, up to 90% of the indigenous population died from these European diseases.
90%. Wow. That's just horrifying.
It is.
So the conquistadors weren't just fighting armies, they were fighting alongside this invisible force that was already wiping out their enemies before they even, crossed swords.
Exactly. It's a tough reminder that disease can really be a deciding factor in power struggles, in who conquers who.
Yeah, you're right.
And this pattern, it shows up again and again in history.
That brings to mind another thing you sent me about Napoleon's invasion of Russia.
Yeah.
We always hear about, the Russian winter, how brutal it was, and that's why he lost. But I'm starting to think there's got to be more to the story.
There is. There definitely is. The winter, it was definitely a factor, a big one. But Napoleon's Grand Army, they had another enemy, a silent one, and it was decimating them.
What was it?
Typhus.
Typhus?
Yeah. It's a bacterial disease.
Oh, wow.
Spreads like crazy in, places with bad sanitation, causes high fever, delirium, even death.
Oh, that's awful.
And it weakened Napoleon's forces big time, made them even more vulnerable to that harsh winter.
So it's like with the Spanish conquistadors, Napoleon's army had this powerful force working against them, but this time it was on the side of the Russians.
Exactly.
But, some historians say that the winter was really the main reason Napoleon lost. What do you think about that?
Well, the winter was definitely brutal, no doubt about it, but typhus had already done a lot of damage before the worst of the winter even hit.
Yeah.
Think of it like this. The winter was the knockout punch. But typhus had already softened up Napoleon's army,
Oh.
They weren't strong enough to fight back.
It's just incredible how these events, these historical events that we think we know, are often shaped by things we don't even consider.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what other hidden stories are out there? And this brings us to another period you mentioned, World War I. We talked about the 1918 influenza pandemic, but could a pandemic actually change the outcome of a war that big?
Well, it might seem unlikely. I mean, the war was so huge.
Yeah.
But the 1918 flu, it was devastating.
Yeah.
It just spread everywhere, through the trenches, troop movements, hospitals, all these crowded places.
Yeah.
Millions infected, and it killed, it's estimated, 50 million people worldwide.
50 million. That's just mind-blowing. I mean, it's hard to even imagine that kind of loss.
It is.
Do we know, where this deadly flu, where it started?
Well, that's still a bit of a mystery, actually. but some evidence points to Kansas in the United States.
Kansas.
Yeah. But wherever it started, one thing's for sure, it weakened armies on all sides. And it might have even, played a role in how the war ended.
So it wasn't just about weapons and tactics. It was about who could survive this invisible enemy.
Exactly.
It really makes you think. And it brings up a kind of scary question.
Yeah.
What if someone, decided to use disease as a weapon on purpose?
That's bioterrorism, right? The intentional release of something harmful, something biological.
Yeah.
And it's not a new idea, unfortunately.
Mm.
The source you sent me mentioned the earliest recorded incident.
Oh, wow. What was that? I'm almost afraid to ask.
Well, picture this. Armies, they're catapulting corpses over enemy walls, corpses infected with plague.
What?
Trying to contaminate the water supplies and spread the disease.
That's just horrible.
It is. It's a truly awful tactic. But it shows you this idea of biological warfare, it's been around for centuries.
Yeah, you're right.
And it didn't stop there. In World War II, both sides, the Axis and the Allies, they were researching bioweapons. Yeah. And then during the Cold War, both the U.S. and the Soviet Union, they were developing and stockpiling these deadly pathogens.
It's a little unsettling, to think that these weapons are out there.
I know what you mean.
This idea that something so small, something we can't even see, could cause so much destruction, it's just chilling.
It is. But it also shows you how important knowledge is. Knowledge about disease can be used for good, or it can be used for evil.
Yeah, that's true.
And it highlights how important it is for countries to work together, to do research responsibly, and to be prepared, globally to prevent these kinds of things from happening.
Well, this has been, it's been a real eye-opener.
It has.
We've seen how disease has brought down empires, changed the course of wars, and even shaped how human civilization is developed.
Yeah, it's all connected.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's clear that understanding the role of epidemics in history, it's key to understanding where we are today and where we're headed.
For sure.
So here's something to think about. If disease has been this powerful throughout history, what does that mean for our future? Especially now that we're so interconnected.
Right.
An outbreak can spread across the globe in just days. It's something to consider, something to think about. And I hope this deep dive is giving you some new perspectives on all of this. Thanks to our expert for all the insights.
My pleasure.
And remember, this deep dive, it was curated just for you.
Until next time.
See ya.
See ya, yeah.